Hi, everyone. This is Tim Melvin with the Tim Melvin Deep Value Report and Banking on Profits newsletter coming from you down here. It was just an absolutely gorgeous day in Central Florida. No humidity, about 79 degrees is its high. It's going to be a beautiful day. And I'm going to waste it on the couch watching football and a little later on this afternoon, the Orioles Tigers game. So that's my plan for the day. Anyway, what a week in the markets, huh? We've got Ebola scares, potential for riots for one of these demonstrations in Hong Kong. They've got till Monday to clear the streets. That could get very interesting. I think China's going to take a much harder line with these protesters than the rest of the world realizes, but we'll see. We've got falling oil prices have weighed on the market. You've got Brazilian elections, which has really just been crushing the Brazilian stock market as it becomes clear that Dilma Rousseff is, in fact, probably going to win this thing. You had a positive jobs number on Friday. That kind of lifted everybody's spirits a little bit. But if you really dug into that report, yeah, that falling participation rate, flat wage growth, and longer work week, that's all just a little bit troubling to me and to some other participants in the market. It just was a sloppy, messy week in the market. We actually had a down week. The S&P came in down 0.7%. Global pressures as we've got the oncoming stress tests in Europe for the European banks. We've got discussions of yet another Greek bailout. Yay. Um, Problems again in Brazil related to the elections really weighed on the world indexes. So the all world URTH index that came down a healthy 1.41%, and our small banks in the QABA ETF, well, they just kind of trotted along down 16/100ths of a percent. Not much going on there this week. Okay, the dirty words oil. I know it, you know it. My email box is blowing up with concerns about oil and oil related stocks because we do hold several in the international and domestic deep value portfolios. Now, there's been a real sea change in the Saudi position. They've gone from protecting price to what they say is protecting market share. Whole bunch of politics going on here, folks. The other members of OPEC are not delighted with them. We'll see how all that plays out. And if you look in the financial papers or just the regular papers this morning, there's a bunch of different articles on what's going to happen with oil prices. Everybody's got an opinion. Some people think that we're going to continue to see this glut of oversupply and a price war developing. And, we could get down into the 80s. It's possible. We could see exactly the opposite happen as some of the other players in the industry, Iran, notably Russia, if they can, move to protect price and cut back on production. And we've always got ISIS that can always blow up into something bigger. And some people say, hey, that could be a real problem that eventually drives oil prices up. I have no idea. Just like you, I'm going to sit here and watch and see how this thing plays out. Now, some interesting thoughts that I read this weekend, most notably Dan Dicker at RealMoney.com pointed out that although the consensus view is that, hey, lower oil prices, this is great. That's lower gas prices, lower heating oil prices. It's just a wonderful thing for the consumer. There's a downside to that, folks. The energy is a huge part of our economy. Now, if we should see oil stay down in that $80 range for any extended period of time, production in the Gulf of Mexico is going to shut down. It's not economically viable. You're going to have a whole bunch of rigs idled, a whole bunch of jobs lost. Same with the shale oil fields, and there you'll see rigs idled, you'll see people laid off, and you'll see a bunch of companies, the smaller marginal companies in the industry, they're going to go. There's going to be bankruptcies and liquidations. The oil patch is going to get hit and hit hard, and that could be a blow actually to the U.S. economy. So, for every good thing in falling gas prices, there could be an offset in jobs lost in the energy sector of the economy. We'll see how all this plays out. The big concern, of course, is we do have a lot of oil drillers, oil services companies that, they were trading at our 80% or so of book value. We bought them. They're a lot cheaper now. These things have been falling like a rock. They remind me of internet stocks in 2001. They just cannot seem to catch a bid. They recovered a little bit on Friday, but it's been a free fall. These things are way off the highs for the year. Now they're down at 75, 70, and even 50% of tangible book value in some instances, and everybody's very concerned. Where do I add? What do I do? Calm down, folks, okay? Price only matters in relation to value, and falling prices in these stocks is actually good for us. I'm not really worried about where these things go in the next month, even the next 6 months, the next year. I'm more worried about 2018-19 prices on the oil drillers and energy stocks. And I think that's going to be pretty good because eventually, even if we go through an oil shock, all the marginal players are knocked out. Production comes way offline. The oversupply will go away. We'll see prices work their way back up, drilling activity pick up. Most of the stocks that we own have really solid financials. They're going to be here, even if they have to go through an extended downturn. It's really just going to give us a chance to accumulate some nice cheap stocks. Now, everybody talks about being a patient, disciplined investor, and they like to quote Warren Buffett about, oh, you shouldn't own a stock unless you're prepared for it to go down 50% or more. But when the stocks actually start to do that, we get that little whiff of panic in the air. Now, let's calm down. We own world-class assets. If you're not getting involved in the oil drillers, I'd suggest that you start, taking a good look at getting some. As they work their way down, we'll strategically add. Of course, anytime I add subscribers, get the newsletter alert right away. So let's just calm down. They're world-class assets. Oil demand is long-term going up. 4, 5, even 10 years from now, these things will sell for a much, much higher price than they do right now. So don't hit the panic button. Stay calm. If we're doing this right, these are only, one, maybe a 1.5% position in the portfolio. So they're not really killing us or, eliminating our net worth unless we've, bought too much. I hope nobody's out there's done that. So let's just calm down, ride it out. We're going to get a chance to buy more of these. And like I said, 2018, 19, 2020, these things will trade for a lot more than they do today. I've been through it. I've seen many stocks and sectors over my career go from cheap to cheaper to, oh my God. All right. And eventually, as long as we've got the balance sheet side of this right, they recover and we end up making money something like 90% of the time in my career. Patience pays. So this is one of those times. Let's just stay calm, read a good book, quit checking our stock prices every 5 minutes, and ride this thing out. Okay. So that's, if we'll call it the bad news, that's the bad news that's been going on in the market this week. But I've got some good news for you. Sterne Agee, great research and investment banking firm, by the way. They does a lot of work with community banks. They came out with a report from their community banking sector this week that pointed out something we already knew, but they kind of quantified it for us. Community banks that have an activist investor involved in the stock tend to provide enormously outsized profits. Over the decade that these guys studied, they found that when an activist was involved in a community bank, the median return was about 49%, compared to just 17% for the NASDAQ Bank Index over the same time period. That's huge numbers, folks. That's and it's playing out in experience. Our average takeover so far has been at a 50% premium. Now, this is great news. In the Banking on Profits portfolio, in the regular service, most of our stocks have an activist, at least one, some 2 and 3 activists and other smart money investors involved in the stock. So we're very positive about those going forward. We just added one to the portfolio. Great little bank. 77% of book value, and an activist investor just bought over 9% of the bank, and his stock price didn't even blink. So apparently he negotiated his transactions, gave us a chance to get into this just super high quality little bank, very, low loan losses, plenty of equity capital. Now there's somebody in there agitating, for change and unlocking shareholder value. That could be a huge hit for us. We've got, about 20 of those in the portfolio. In the Banking on Profits monthly service, we track 13D filings for you every month. So you can see not just the activists, but we track several other smart money investors that are heavily involved in the small bank sector. Then every quarter we go through and we break down all the 13 F filings of these guys so you can see exactly what they're up to, even in those stocks where they didn't necessarily take a 5% or larger position. So you can stay on top of that. I'll say it again. The opportunity in community banks is here, it's real, and I just can't fathom why you would not want to be involved in this sector of the stock market. I can tell you that in the community bank portion of my portfolio, I don't spend a lot of time worrying about what's happening in Hong Kong or Ebola or oil prices or anything else, except is the bank being run correctly? How are the loan losses, and do they have adequate capital? And as long as all those questions are yes, pick up the book, turn on the tube, pour a glass of wine, and relax. I'm just going to sit there and let time and demographics and economic trends make me a ton of money over the next 5 to 10 years. You should be doing it. I hope you'll join us in that. Okay, now this week, let's just jump in here. The book binge is really starting. We've got a new book by John Sandiford coming out in the Virgil Flowers series. Great, entertaining series of books. Stuart Woods has a new Stone Barrington book out. Fun, quick reads. I usually wait for the Kindle price to drop below $10, but he has a lot of fans, so you might want to check that book out. That's a great series. Walter Isaacson. So this is a nonfiction book that's pretty, it's been pretty anticipated. And it's called The Innovators, and it looks at the rise of the digital revolution and the folks who created that. It's going to be an interesting read. Also out this week, and I just downloaded this and absolutely cannot wait to read it. Frank Cashin, who was the general manager of the Baltimore Orioles through much of the successful years of the 60s and 70s, and later helped transform the amazing Mets from a mess to a contender. With the 1980s New York Mets and the World Series titles there. Only general manager to win a title in both leagues, and that's the name of the book, Winning in Both Leagues by Frank Cash. And if you're a baseball fan like I am, that's going to be a tremendous read. Speaking of baseball, in 2 hours, they're going to take the field in Detroit. We're going for a sweep after that amazing game Friday. I mean, Delman Young, a double down the line to clear the bases. J.J. Hardy saved by, maybe a couple of inches on that tag in the eighth inning. Fantastic baseball game. It's going to be a tough job to beat Detroit today in their home field with all the excitement, the big bats that they have in the lineup, and David Price, who is 7-3 against the Orioles on the mound. We're going to have to get to Price early, get into that bullpen, and we can get it done. If we don't get it done today, pretty sure we'll get it done tomorrow. I think that the Baltimore Orioles are going to the American League Championship Series this year, and I'm really excited about that. Interestingly, two of the teams that I, along with just about everybody else, picked to be in their league series, the Nationals and the Angels are both on the verge of elimination, down 0-2. The Nationals' bats have just gone away, completely silent. Same with the Angels. And Kansas City's beating them in extra inning games, holding them down with pitching and defense and last-minute home runs. Been some great games in that series. The Dodgers and Cardinals, they're split. I think that's going to be a 5-game series. Those are two fantastic baseball teams. So I think it'll be Baltimore in the American League. I really like the path that is being laid out for us at this point. If we can get one more win from Detroit, I think that we are going to the championship series, and from there to the World Series for the first time since 1983. And there's going to be some excitement about that around Shea Melvin. You better believe it. All right, football, my midshipmen in Navy, they just couldn't get it done against the Air Force yesterday. The other service academies are catching up to them just a little bit, and so is the strength of schedule. I mean, Navy's insane starting the year with Ohio State. They need to be playing smaller schools that have the same and similar academic standards as they do, but nobody listens to me. Notre Dame pulled it off against Stanford. I was a little worried about that game. They got it done with a late touchdown, and my adopted Florida Gators continue to be an incredibly boring football team to watch in spite of the new offensive system they were supposed to install. But a late quarterback switch to a freshman. They just pulled out a coach's job-saving game by 10-9 over Tennessee. I don't think that Will Muschamp is back next year. The program's just kind of lost its way. It's a shame because, I look great in orange and blue. That dark blue shirt with the little orange crest, I look fantastic in that thing. Really want to stay rooting for the Gators, so I hope they pick it up during the rest of the year. Big news was Mississippi rising in college football this week. Ole Miss beat Alabama. Town went crazy from what I understand. And then Mississippi State upset Texas A&M, some team everybody thought was going to make it to that Final Four playoff run. They still could, but they're in a hole now, having lost a game. So, and the Michigan, sorry guys, up there at Market Fine, Benzinga in Michigan. Michigan's just not getting it done. Program needs a serious overhaul, and I suspect the coach is not long for his current employment situation. Okay, today we've got the Ravens and the Colts in Indianapolis. Oh, look, if you grew up like I did as a Baltimore Colts fan, there's always a little bit of grudge factor with this one because of the 1983 move from Baltimore to Indianapolis. You'd think we would get over it, but we don't. So let's hope the Ravens defense puts a whooping on Mr. Luck and his Colts. That's a tough challenge at home because that is a very talented young quarterback. Okay, Blake Bortles goes up. Can he be a Steelers killer today? I certainly hope so. Young man is one of the most talented quarterbacks that came into the league. Of course, played right down the street here at UCF. So I'm hoping that Jacksonville can finally put a beating on the Pittsburgh Steelers and help my Ravens out in the division standings. We'll see how that goes. Bengals Patriots later tonight. I think this is going to be a slaughter. Bengals are on the way up, very good team. Patriots, not as good as they used to be and on the way down, and many people think that we are looking at the end of the Tom Brady era up there in New England. All right, busy week. Bank of Japan and Bank of England both have interest rate decisions. Ben Bernanke is going to be allowed out to give speeches and comments. That's always interesting and can be potentially market moving, and we'll see what he has to say. The IMF will be out with their Global Financial Stability Report. The IMF and the World Bank also have their annual meetings this week, later in Washington, D.C. Let's see, we have a European meeting on job creation. That should be pretty interesting. It sounds a little futile to me. They've been having a terrible time with that. Excuse me. We also have the Fed minutes out. And we can spend hours poring over sentences and commas and word placement and try to decipher exactly what everybody meant. It is a waste of time, in my opinion. The gist of the report is going to be the same as the gist of the last several reports. Things are better, but they're not yet good. We're not quite sure when we're going to raise interest rates, but we sure hope to be able to someday. There's your Fed minutes report. Not going to be any shockers in there, but it can move markets, and people are going to talk about it almost endlessly the day they are released. All right, the big news next week, there is a huge event. It's being put on by the good folks at Benzinga and MarketFi, and it's going to be an afternoon of value investing with some very great speakers. We have Dave Mecklenburg of OTC Adventures coming on to talk about finding small, overlooked stocks. Nate Tobick will be on talking about the search for oddball stocks. It's his stock, oddballstocks.com, and bank stocks. Like me, he's a big believer in the trade of the decade. Tobias Carlyle, the author of Deep Value, Why Activist Investors Struggle for Control of Losing Corporations, which is just the best value investing book of the year so far, hands down, in my opinion. He's going to share his thoughts on deep value investing with us. And then Kristen Bentz of talentedblonde.com will come on and talk about how to find values in retail stocks. She is a fantastic speaker, really knows the retail industry, so lots to learn there. And hitting cleanup will be me, talking about the search for value in the current overvalued world. So that's next Saturday. It's going to be from 11 to 4. We'll be getting some links out for you guys to sign up this week. Block the time off. You can watch a little college football in the background and pick up a lot of valuable information, ideas, and suggestions on how to become a better investor. So we hope you can join us for that next Saturday. I'm pretty excited about it, really looking forward to it. And that's going to be it from us here today. I've got to go watch the Ravens and the Colts, and in a couple hours switch over to that Orioles game. So I'm going to be very busy enjoying this beautiful day on the couch with a book and a remote. And I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and I'll talk to you next week.